Alright guys, hello and welcome to another After Effects tutorial, and in this one we are going to be talking about motion tracking. So motion tracking is very helpful, and the purpose of it is to track a certain motion of a certain element in your video so that you can attach another object to it. But before we begin, we need to make sure that we have a certain setting correct. So go up to Edit, Preferences, or if you're on a Mac it should be under After Effects, and then go to Display. Wait for it to appear, and then make sure that you have all keyframes selected so that when we do the tracking, we're able to see how the tracking was done. Press OK. Now let's begin. We need to open up our tracker panel right here, and if you don't see this, just go up to Window and then have Tracker selected. And notice that if we click on our footage here, we have a few options. So we have first the track camera and the warp stabilizer, and these two are actually effects. So if I was to click on it, notice that this effect would appear. Same with the warp stabilizer. And then we have track motion and stabilized motion. Now these are different. So if I click this, notice that the layer panel opens up and I have this track point that has appeared. And if I open this up down here, I have motion trackers and tracker 1, track point 1, and then all of these different properties down here as well. Now notice under our tracker point as well, we have motion source, and this is the man or the clip that we selected when we pressed track motion. We have tracker 1. We'll see later on that we can add multiple trackers. We have track type. You can do stabilize, parallel corner pen, perspective corner pen, raw. And then you have different ways to track as well, so position, rotation, scale. And then the edit the target, which you will use when you actually attach your object to your clip. Alright, so now we're going to be looking at the track point and how to really adjust it and work with it. So here I have my track point right here, and the properties are open down here. And I have one right now, but if I wanted to add more, all I would have to do is simply go up here and select this track motion like that, and now notice that I have another one. And if you want to get rid of it, you just select it and delete it like that. Now clicking on this first one right here, it appears, and if we zoom in, notice that we have these two boxes right here. This first box is called our search region, and then the second box is called our featured region. And then we have this dot here which is called the attach point. Now, what do all these mean? So in our search region or search box, After Effects is going to be looking for our featured region or featured box. And then in this smaller box or our featured region, After Effects is going to be looking at our channels, either the RGB, luminosity, or saturation. And to see these, we just open up here in our options, and it's going to be looking at one of these channels that you have selected, so the RGB, luminance, or saturation. And this is what After Effects is going to look for while it's tracking. Now it's been recommended that luminosity is the best, but you can also try RGB or saturation. I'll leave it at luminosity for now. And then lastly we have this attach point, and this is where we are going to attach our object or our effect. Now if you want to change the size of the boxes, you can grab on the handles here like this, like that. If you want to move the attach point, you can just drag it wherever you want it to be. And if you want it to, you can move it down here as well. So we can move the whole thing. We can move the featured region like this. Notice when you do this, it goes outside, which doesn't really make sense because with this, it needs to be inside the search region. So I'll leave it right here. We can also offset the search region like this. We can change its size. And then we have something here called the confidence, which is going to be the confidence of After Effects in this track point while it is doing the tracking. So if it's set to a really low value, After Effects isn't going to really put a lot of confidence in this track point right here, or it's not really going to rely on it. But if it's set to a high value, After Effects is really going to rely on this track point. Next we have the attach point as well down here, and we can offset it if we want. Alright, awesome. Now we can move this as well. So if we just grab it, notice that the zoom box appears and we can move it to where we want it to be. So if I click off here, I've set it right to his arm, and I'll move this later to where I actually want it to be. But for now, I just wanted to show you guys how the track point works. So I'm going to drag my track point right here, and I'm going to put it actually on his backpack. So right about there. And then if you go over here, you can analyze it either forwards or backwards. And we are going to analyze forward since we are at the start. So analyze. And you want to be zoomed out when you analyze so that you can see the motion path that is going to be created. All right, that looks like it did a pretty good job and it doesn't need much corrections. So I'm just going to scrub through this really quickly to take another look. And then we're going to look at an example when the tracking doesn't do its job well. So let's say we add another tracker right here. Track motion for tracker 2. And then let's grab this and we'll put it on his jacket right here. And then we're going to zoom out and then we are going to analyze it. Notice how it's going off. So I'm going to stop right there. So let's go back and we're going to close this track point 1 because we're not looking at it right now. And we're going to open up tracker 2. All right. So if I scrub this through, notice that it goes off over time. So how do you deal with this? Well, basically what you have to do is you have to go in here and you will see that you have a motion path that has been created, right? And that is what these little keyframes down here represent. This is the motion path of our tracker. Now what we have to do is we have to simply find where it starts to go off, right about here. And then you can just go back to the last spot that it was good at. And then you can delete all of the keyframes in front of it, like this. Delete. All right, so it's good here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go forward in time 1 frame. So right here. And then we're going to drag our track point over like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out a little bit. And then we press analyze again. All right. So notice how it went off again. So what I would do is I would just repeat the same process that I just did over and over until I got to the end of my clip. Or if you want, you can just take each keyframe one by one and continue adjusting them until you get to the end of your clip. All right, guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to actually attach things to our tracker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I will create a star like this. Just draw one out. And then I will center the anchor point. This is very important, so press Control, Alt, and Home if you're on Windows, or Command, Alt, and Home if you're on a Mac. And then what we're going to do is we are going to go down and select our man. We will double click on him to open up our layer panel. And then we are going to go over here and open up the tracker. And then we see that the motion source is set to our layer, the man. Current track is tracker 1, and then track type, we're going to set this to transform. All right, and I have it set to position right here. Now what we have to do is we have to select this edit target. And notice that this appears, this apply motion to. And here we see our shape layer that we created, or our star. So I'm going to select this here. I'll probably rename this after we're done. But I'm going to select this here and I'm going to press OK. And then we will select apply. This appears, and you can do it either by the X and the Y, or X only, or Y only. But I'm going to leave it at X and Y. Press OK. And our star is actually attached to our backpack. And I'm going to rename this before we go ahead. So I will call this star, like that. And if we play it back, notice that our star is attached to our backpack. Awesome. All right, now what has actually happened here? Well, if you remember, when we did the first track of our man, it gave us a motion path. Correct. And what After Effects has done is that it has copied this motion path and it has applied it to our star up here. So if we were to open up the transform and look at the position, we see that the same motion path has now been applied. And if we play it back, it goes like this. So that is what After Effects has done. Now, sometimes you guys may realize that your object is not where you wanted it to be, and this is probably because your attach point offset was moved. So you want to make sure before you do your actual tracking that this is set to where you want it to be, because it can throw off the entire thing. And if you want to move this later on, you can. So we can just say delete this position right here. And then we will go into our layer panel, zoom in like this, and we can just offset this to maybe down here like that, and off to the side a little bit. And then to track it again, we just go over here, set this to transform, edit target, star, and then you press apply. Notice that it has now been tracked and the star is offset to the side a little bit and beneath. And if I play it back, I have this. Now, what if you actually want to apply effects? How do we do this? Well, it's pretty simple. All we have to do is just go over here and to our effects. In some effects, you can actually track. So I will select one called the CC Light Sweep. And I'm going to put it on my clip here, like this. Notice that it appears, and I will make the width a little bit bigger. And the sweep intensity I'm going to bring up as well, so we really see it. And we can mess with, say, the rotation of it or the direction, like this. We'll make it 0. All right. Now what we have to do now is just go back into our layer panel. Over here, open up our tracker, and then we will select current track, tracker 1, and then edit target. We're going to open it up, and notice that we now have the option of effect point control. And what this point is in our layer over here, this light sweep, is the center. This is the point that After Effects is relying on. So that's just a really important side note. To do a track with an effect, it needs a point. So I'm going to press OK, and then I'm going to select apply. Press OK again. Now notice that if I play it back, my light sweep is actually being tracked as well with the star. So now we see that our light sweep has now been attached. And if we go down and look at it in the effects, we will see that to the center has been applied the motion path. And if we play it back, it is now following our man. And if you want to move it like with the star, you can just select them all, and then you can move it to the side and so on. So that is how you can apply effects to a track point in After Effects. All right, guys, so now we are going to be looking at the corner pen tracker, and we are going to be tracking this monitor right here. So to do this, all I do is select on my layer, double click, and this opens up my layer panel. And then I'm going to go over here to track motion and select it. And a tracker has been added. We see it down here. And then under track type, I'm going to select perspective corner pen. Notice that 4 pens have been added, and I'm going to put these on my corners right here. And you want to get it as close to the area that you want it to be, but still covering what needs to be covered. And make sure that you pay attention not only to the square box, but also to the line here, that it's covering everything that you want to be covered. And sometimes After Effects may not let you grab a certain track point for a certain reason, so you may have to grab another track point first before you grab another one. So I have all of my pens here, and if I go forward in time, you will actually see that this clip starts to do a transition. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut the clip right here. And this is all that I'm going to use. So going back to the beginning, I zoom out and then I select Analyze. All right. Yeah, and we can cut it a little bit closer. So we'll cut it right about here. And now we have our track points. Now, what would you do if, say, a track point started to go off in here? Well, the thing that I recommend is actually for you to go down to your views here, or your view, and then select none to navigate, because it's a lot faster and easier when it is set to none and not set to motion tracker points. So you just set it to none, and then you go to the spot where you want to change. So like right up here, if it was bad, and then I would turn this back on to motion tracker points like this. And then right here, I can just make the changes that I want. All right, so now that that is done, what we are going to do is we are going to go back into our composition panel and we will drag in our clip that we want to use. So this guy right here. And then we will go back into our layer panel right here. And then we will select our layer and then the tracker one. And then under edit target, you can probably guess for our layer, we are going to select the aircraft. Press OK. And then press apply. It brings us back into the composition panel. And then if we play this back now, we see that our plane is actually tracked to our screen. Now it's a little bit off here, so if you wanted to fix this, you would have to somehow crop it and then clean this up. But I just wanted to show you guys how the corner pin tracking actually works. And to show you guys something else here, notice on our aircraft, an effect has been added called corner pin. And this is an effect that you can find actually in your effects and presets. So corner pen. What After Effects has done is that it has applied this effect, and then on each of the corners, it has used the same tracking as what was tracked in our monitor right here. So these track points. So that was what was done. So I hope that you have a better understanding of tracking now and that you can use it in After Effects. And we will see you in the next tutorial. Until next time.